You're listening to the Franchise Freedom Podcast with Giuseppe Grammatico.
Okay, and welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, your franchise guide, and we have a very special guest today. But before we get into the show, I have a little note here. This episode of Franchise Freedom is brought to you by the SMBpodcastnetwork.com. The network is a collection of podcasts and shows from around the internet, which focuses on bringing you interviews and amazing guests who share actionable advice. Here is the website. It's SMB Network here at the bottom of the screen, SMBpodcastnetwork.com. If you've discovered us today via the network, I hope you enjoy the show and consider subscribing and gather some great information. So check it out, SMBpodcastnetwork.com. Now, jumping into the show, we have a very, very special guest. Steve Gorey helped me launch my podcast 2 years ago, almost to the day. We're episode 98, so really excited. A little bit about Steve. Steve is a two-time entrepreneur, best-selling author of Unstoppable Referrals, 10X Referrals, Half the Effort, and Exponential Network Strategy. Actually, a couple of his books, I have them on my desk. Great reads, and we'll talk a little bit more about them. He's the host of the Unstoppable CEO podcast and has published over 400 articles on marketing and sales for professional service firms. Steve, welcome to the show.
Giuseppe, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I've been looking forward to it. This is a major milestone. It's been, from 2 to 98 episodes, and I have to thank you for that. You were the one that talked to me about podcasts. I was really nervous, wasn't certain, and it's been a game changer. So I wanted to thank you for that. And Steve also helped with the publishing of my first book, Franchise Freedom. So thank you. I truly mean that. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Give the audience a little bit of context of kind of what your firm does, and more importantly, or I shouldn't say more importantly, prior to that, how did you get into owning your own firm from employee to CEO?
Sure. Well, so the story gets longer and longer every year, right? Because the hair's getting grayer and grayer. But I started off, with a background in a really small discipline of engineering called geomatics, which if anyone who's listening to this actually heard of it, I'm impressed. And went to work for an engineering consulting firm right out of high school, out of college, and was really fortunate, had a great mentor there. And after I'd been there for about 4 years, he asked me to take over and run the firm, be the CEO. And it was a blast. I half the time didn't know what I was doing, but I was learning a lot, as you do when you're thrown into things. And I got to learn how to run a business, how to manage a team, how to grow the business, and just found that I really enjoyed the sales and marketing part of that, and really enjoyed that more than I did the technical stuff. So back in, it was 2010, I decided to leave that and start the current business. And we help other service providers, other professionals create systems to help them do their business development for them. One of the things that I found back then was that I would spend all kinds of time networking, just business development in general was just very time consuming, labor intensive thing to do. And I've kind of combined my distaste for wasting time with my systems approaches from that technical background to help professionals create business development systems that do most of the work for them. That's one of the reasons we love podcasts, because with a podcast, it's sort of like a marketing 3-in-1. You get to do all of your networking, you get to create all of your content, you get all of your drip nurturing stuff done, and all in about 30 minutes to an hour every week. So compared to what I used to spend networking, which was 8 to 10 hours in some weeks, it's a huge time saver. It's the other tool we use are books, and books are fantastic for allowing you to take all of your best ideas and let them go out into the world and sell you instead of you going out and selling those ideas manually. So that's what I've been doing for the last, 12 years now. And it's a blast.
Yeah, it seems like it's going well. I see more and more of you, and I definitely want to get into the book because that's a big part of today. I wanted to get the question all the time. You know, how do you write a book? Who should write a book, and what are the benefits? So we started when I met you a couple years ago. The podcast was the major focus, and one thing that stuck and I still remember the conversation was, podcasting is a great avenue, but maybe it's not for everyone. You got to give it a shot. But one thing you had said to me was that a lot of things work as long as you stick with them and you enjoy them. So it's not about, well, a podcast is the end all be all for everyone. Maybe it's just writing, maybe it's just a podcast, but picking your lane and just kind of owning it. And that's why I said, you know what, for me to have a successful show, it's not going to take a couple episodes. We're now 2 years in and I'm still learning, and we're growing, we're learning, we're figuring this thing out. So that still really resonated with me when people ask, what's the best avenue? I go, it's the avenue you're going to stick to and truly enjoy. It's kind of like what diet or what workout. And it's not what's the same workout that's going to work for me may not work for you. So talk to us a little bit about how podcasting came into play and, maybe even how a podcast can help write a book, if that, we can talk kind of about both.
Yeah. So there really, when we think about growing a service business, there are 3 tools that we think are essential. Okay. And the first is a book. And the reason that we like a book is that we found that it's the very best tool to get attention. The second tool is a podcast because we think it's the best tool to hold attention. And it's got some other strategic byproducts that we can talk about. And then the third tool is what we call a signature presentation. And it's the best tool to convert attention. So to take that attention that someone is giving you and convert that into, move them into your sales process, into a conversation. So if we look at the big picture, these are 3 different tools used at different points in your business development. And the good news is, if you put those 3 in place, that's about all you'll ever need. Books have been used to generate leads for businesses for over 100 years, and it hasn't changed all that much in how they're used. Podcast is nothing more than a radio or a TV show, and that's been used to hold people's attention for almost 100 years now. If you think about the reason that soap operas existed back before they were even on TV, they were on radio.
Right.
Well, it was content that was created by the soap companies, literally. That's why they called them soap operas, to hold the attention of the decision maker buyers, the housewives at that point. We've, for all of human history, we have been using presentations and speeches and things like that to channel someone's attention and move them towards some action that we'd like them to take, to persuade. So these aren't new tools. And that's one of the reasons that I like them, because they're not built on a fad. They're built on the way that humans tend to react and respond. And so that's the great news. You don't have to be on the next platform that comes around. You can, but if you have these 3 tools as the foundation, you've probably got all you ever need to build your business over the course of your career. And so that's why we put so much focus on them. So, we for a long time, we started people off with the podcast because the thinking was, well, it's going to free up immediate time. And it's going to free up the business owner, so they're not going to have to do quite so much networking and spend that, all those hours that they would waste going to lunch meetings and coffee dates and all that kind of stuff to meet people. But what we found was that you really needed something in front of that to generate leads. The fundamental problem most businesses have is that they don't have enough opportunity flowing. And so around the time we started working together, we started coupling the 2 together. So if we had somebody that was going to do a podcast included in that offering, we would write a book for them. And And that we found was a game changer, because now they had a way to generate leads on the front end. And then they had a great tool to nurture those leads over the long haul. And sometimes that's what it takes. Not everybody's ready to buy today. They're probably walking around in your market right now, maybe 3% of people that know they're ready to buy right now. There may be another 7% you could convince to buy right now, but there's probably at least another 30 or 37% that are perfect prospects for you, have a need, would buy if they were presented the opportunity, but they're not thinking about it yet. And so you need to nurture those people. And so that's why we build the system out this way. We want to be able to generate those leads, and then we want to be able to build that relationship with them over time.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. I read some interesting stats, and I don't know if it changes by industry. I know specifically in franchising, and I'm assuming it's similar, especially in the service-based businesses, where 70 to 80% of the buyer's journey is done before even contacting you. So sometimes, as someone on a podcast in the book, you expect sometimes maybe the results to happen overnight. And it's one of those where I got the book, I sat on my desk for a couple of weeks, then I started reading it. And then 6 months later, 3 months later, I've seen it, 3 to 6 months, we're contacting you because I finally had a chance to digest it, show it to my partner, whoever's involved in the business, whoever else is involved. And now is kind of the right time. So it's pretty amazing from the actual first time they saw the info or listened to the podcast to contacting me. There's that huge gap. So I found that interesting, and it put my mind at rest that this stuff takes time, because in many cases you expect it to happen immediately, and I just had the wrong mindset that these things take time. Have you experienced kind of the same thing, heard the same stats?
Well, so yeah, I think that's true across all industries, that there is a very small minority of people that are ready to buy now. Mm-hmm. And the vast majority of the sales are going to come from people who discover something today, but they aren't going to buy for maybe 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, 5 years. I don't know. The last 2 weeks, we brought on 2 new clients who got my first book, Unstoppable Referrals, over 5 years ago. Oh, wow. And one of the guys told me, he pulled it off of his bookshelf while we were on Zoom talking. And he said, this book's moved with me 4 times. Oh, Now, when was the last time you had a brochure that somebody moved with them? Right. From one house to another 4 times? Never happens.
You can't throw these out. A book. I don't throw books out. Brochures, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, people don't put them in the garbage. Sometimes people will get rid of books. You'll go through and cull out a library or something, in your house, and you'll get rid of books, right, but you never throw it out. So where do they go? They go to like the secondhand bookstore or the Goodwill or wherever. So it's going to get recirculated and discovered by somebody else, but, or you give them away as gifts to people. So they don't throw them out, which is a huge advantage. And that creates longevity, with your marketing. There's no other form of marketing that will be that persistent. If you look at the bookcase behind me, those are almost all business books. Right. And I've done business over the years with an awful lot of those authors, because one day I turned around and I looked up and I had a problem, and I remembered that I read a book. Mm-hmm. And then I started investigating, and the next thing I know, I'm engaged with that author or their company, right, to be able to work. But it doesn't always take time, because sometimes your book is going to land in the hands of that person who's in that 3%, who's looking for the solution today, and they're looking for a reason to buy from somebody. And you show up and you're the one who wrote the book. Now all of a sudden they go, oh, there's a sea of people who do this, and I can't tell one from another. They all look the same to me. How do I know who to buy from? And so they hesitate. And then you show up and you're the one who wrote the book, and they go, oh, well, this guy must be the leader. This gal must be the leader. Yeah. So I'm going to go investigate them and do business with them. And that can happen really fast.
And you become the authority, right? You're the expert in that area. And one thing I found interesting is when people get my book, I'll ask them, what did you think of it? What did you think of it? Thoughts? I'm always thinking of writing a second book, right? Things maybe I didn't include, or maybe just touching on, maybe it's just a book on case studies. I've seen books just like that. And feedback I've received, and I don't know if you've received it, because you have obviously multiple books you've written, and I'm just on number one. But they'll say, "Well, I read the first chapter or two, didn't finish it, and this is extremely common, but loved what you had to say, and that's why we're talking today. I want to learn. Definitely a good fit. Didn't finish the book, but I want to learn more about it. So I don't know. Do you come across the same thing where they haven't read it, and it's a 30 minutes, a short, very short read, but they love what they have to say. So you really, my thought process was I better cram it as much as I can in those first two chapters for anyone reading my future books. Have you come across the same thing?
Oh, yeah. So strangest sales call I ever had. Guy in the UK booked a time on my calendar to meet with me, and it was like 8:00 at night, probably for him,
right?
With the time zone difference. And someone had given him a copy of my first book, and he had taken it with all intentions of reading it and stuck it on his nightstand. Mm-hmm. And this is, I don't know, 2 or 2.5 years after he'd been given that book, he gets on the phone with me. First thing he says is, "I've never read your book, and I'm not going to read your book." And I thought, well, this is a really odd way to start a conversation with a stranger, right? And he said, "Please don't be offended by that. It's been sitting on my nightstand for 2 years or 2.5 years, whatever it was. My buddy gave it to me, and I'm never going to read it. I know I'm not going to read it at this point, but I need what it says on the front. Can you help me? What would it take?" Easiest sale I've ever made. Never read the book.
Wow.
But the fact that I had written the book proved to him that I was the expert. I was the authority, and that he needed to work with the expert.
Awesome. Well, I feel better then. So at first I'm like, wow, is not everyone reading it cover to cover, just like myself? But it's funny you mentioned that, because that has been common. So I feel much better. So I love your approach. I know you focus and work with service businesses, and that 3-prong approach, the book, the podcast, and that signature presentation. And it's definitely transformed and changed my business. And it's simple. That presentation has not, my presentation has not changed. The podcasts are obviously new, but it keeps it very simple. And the books, I'm only on book 1, but looking to anticipating and writing future books. So talk to us. So, for today, the question I get all the time is, "Oh, Giuseppe, that's awesome. I saw it. You have the book. I received a copy in the mail, or they purchase it on their own, or I offer a free download on the website. How do I write my own book? I'm in the service space. I'm a consultant. I have no idea where to start." So Q and Steve Gordon, I've made some introductions. So where does someone start? Where do you recommend they start if they have any interest in writing a book?
Well, so an awful lot of people will carry the idea of a book around in their head. They've got a book about what they do, about their business, that they think will really help people and will attract new business to them. And they'll walk around with that idea in their head for years.
Right.
I have one client who said, "Yeah, I've been thinking about doing it for 27 years. And then I finally got help and I got it done." Right. And the reason that they struggle a lot of times is because they don't know where to start. It seems like it just seems like this like massive project. Mm-hmm. I've got to go, to the cabin in the woods next to Walden Pond and, live there for 2 years while I'm doing this. And nobody has the time for that.
Right.
And, a lot of people also don't feel like they're really natural writers. And they may think that that's going to be a real struggle. So for anybody thinking that, I was a solid C student in high school English. That should make you feel better. I've written 5 books. Not once has anyone said your grammar is awful.
Right.
They have editors for a reason. So the place to start is with your idea. It's with your idea. And then thinking about, and we work with our clients to help them kind of take their idea and put it into a persuasive structure, because the whole point of writing the book is to persuade the reader that your way of thinking about a problem that they're facing is the best way to think about it, right? So we want to start with the problem that they're facing. And this is a huge mistake that most experts make. So if you're really knowledgeable in your field, the very first thing that you're likely to want to do in your book is to tell everyone that you know, or tell everyone everything that you know in the book. Right. You're going to want to kind of dump out all of your great knowledge and wisdom, because as an expert, that's what you've been paid to do all these years. Right. So it's a natural thing, but most prospects aren't at that stage yet. They need to understand what problems they face. What are the challenges that lie ahead of them or are present for them right now? What are the potential solutions as a second thing? And the way that we present the solution is by beginning to reveal your unique way of solving it. So what are the unique series of steps that you take someone through that differentiate you from everyone else? And the thing I hear all the time is, if I give it all away, they're never going to hire me. Right. I have yet to find that to be true. And the reason for that is that do-it-yourselfers are never your client. Okay. And so if somebody takes your book and they go do it themselves, you haven't lost anything. You've helped someone that wasn't otherwise going to pay to get help, because that's their mindset. Right. But the very best clients want to look for the expert. They want to see that the expert has a process. They want transparency into that. And then they want to come work with you. And so by revealing that process in the book, you're now giving them the confidence that you know what you're doing and you've got a thought through, laid out system that you're going to follow, that you're going to apply to them. And then the last piece of the book is to really paint a clear picture of what their future can be like. Right. I tell our clients, if you think in terms of the Wizard of Oz, the beginning of the book, you've just landed. The tornado picked you up, it dropped your house, you killed the witch, and you're there and you're lost and you don't know how to get home. And so somebody says, well, you have to follow the yellow brick road. Okay, well, that's the second part of the book. That's your solution. And then the last part of the book is amazing. It's when you get to the Emerald City and Oz and everything is gleaming and sparkling and beautiful. What's life like going to be for them in the future once they've solved this? And if you can lay that out and do that in a really thoughtful, organized way, you're going to have a great book that's going to take someone who has a problem you can solve, and you're going to show them how you can solve it and how much better life will be once it's solved, which is, the purpose of sharing that with them is to get them to act now, not a year from now, not 3 years from now.
Yeah, I like that. And to your point, that process is what gives people that feel-good feeling, that gives, confidence in, okay, I get it. This is it's not an overcomplicated plan, right? I'm going to follow the system, and then I'm going to hire, hopefully, eventually, if you are a consultant or coach or whatever your business model is, I'm going to hire that person because I can get free workouts on YouTube every day of the week, but I'm going to need to hire that trainer to motivate me and hold me accountable. So I absolutely agree. And I went in with a similar mindset. I don't want to give too much away because now it's all in the book for everyone to read. And to your point, you want to do that. You want to give that info because ultimately, if they are interested, we have in the our presentation, why go it alone? That simple line. You have someone that's in your corner that's, walked in your shoes for many miles, has had a corporate job, now looking at a business. Why do it alone or go it alone? And I think that's huge. And I'm a firm believer, and we created an entire section just on our process. And I did an entire show, actually 4 shows on each step of the process, because I think people sometimes need to hear it over and over again, uninterrupted versus having a conversation. They just listen to the audio and then they come back and they have sometimes the aha moment. So, I encourage anyone listening to this episode to listen to it twice, because I definitely had a few aha moments talking to Steve, and we've done some coaching, and he's helped me out quite a bit. So someone starts with the idea, the problem, they help people solve whatever business they're in. What's next? How do you go about helping people? When is a good time for someone to reach out to you, and what does your process kind of look like?
Sure. So the kind of secret unlock we found for writing a book was really all in the preparation. So what we've kind of innovated is we've got a method that I've used myself, that we've been very successful at taking our clients through and teaching them in some cases how to do this on their own so that they can write their book in about 30 minutes a day over the course of 30 days, and sometimes maybe a little, 4 to 6 weeks, but most get done in about 30 days. And that's not a lot of time. Now, we're not talking about writing the next War and Peace. This is not the next Moby Dick. This is a short book that's designed to capture the attention of a decision maker.
Right.
And we don't want to make it so long that it looks like a project to them, because if we do, they're not going to read it. But if they look at it and they go, okay, well, this is long enough that there's something valuable in here, but it's not so long that it's going to take me forever, they'll read it and they'll get through it. And in fact, I just got a book. I was so excited to order this book. It had been recommended to me. And I got it on Friday. We were just getting ready to go out of town for the long weekend. And I thought, this is perfect. I'll be able to read it, while we're traveling. And I get it. And it's like 350 pages. And I was immediately less enthusiastic.
Yeah.
It did not go with me for the weekend. I'm like, there's no way I can finish that. That's work now.
Right.
I was hoping for 100, 150 pages. I could breeze through it in an hour or two and get some good stuff. But so, where we will typically start with folks is to get them organized and get their thinking down on paper in the form of a very detailed outline. And we've got a process we take people through to make sure that we get the right bits of information out and into the outline, because I found that when you break the writing down into very small chunks, then it goes very quickly.
Yep.
The mistake most people make is that they show up and they have, a Microsoft Word or Google Doc, and it's a blank page and it's got that little blinking cursor. And that blinking cursor is like a ninja, and it will take you out if you don't go in with a plan. So when I wrote my first book, Unstoppable Referrals, that was kind of the key for me. I had tried to write a book twice before, and I'd thrown both of those in the garbage because I would go pretty, smoothly up until the third or fourth chapter. But because I didn't have a really solid and very detailed plan for what I was going to cover in the book, all of a sudden I'd end up down a rabbit hole and I'd be like, what am I writing here? And how do I recover from this? And, it's all going in the trash. I'm starting over. And then I heard an interview on a podcast. I wish I could figure out who said it. I would love to credit them with this, and I can't haven't been able to find that episode. And this was back in 2014 and, or the end of 2013, I guess. And, he described how he'd written his books. He said, I get all my leads from books. So that was like, okay, confirmation, I'm on the right track. I need to get a book. And he said, this is how I did it. And he broke down how he outlined the book. And we've made some improvements to that since then. But I went into my home office, told my wife, I'm going in at Saturday. I'm going to go in. I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to have it completely outlined before I leave this office today.
Right.
And I was in there until about, 4:00 that afternoon. And I'd outlined all of what is now Unstoppable Referrals, started writing it the next day, and was able to write that book in 30 days, about an hour a day.
Wow.
And we've sort of taken some of the moving parts out and streamlined it a little bit and been able to get the time down. But that's the key. That's the place to start.
And it's definitely doable. And I was there as well. That blinking cursor, trying to figure out prior to us working together. And I think chunking, I think we had talked about it years ago, was something I learned from Tony Robbins, right? Just break it up. Once you chunk things down, let's tackle one area, one topic. You don't have to write the entire book in a day. You're going to, let's get 5 key topics. Let's write a topic a day. I think it makes life so much easier. And I also compare it to franchising. Where do I start? Well, the franchise company doesn't train you in a day. One day it's about financials. The next day is hiring your team. The third is finding your office or your location. So it's very similar, so that you don't get that deer in headlights, that anxiety kicks in, and all of a sudden you have that writer's block and have no idea what to write. So figure out your magic time when you enjoy writing, and your creative time, which is going to be different for everyone. maybe in the shower. I've heard people say I get my ideas in the shower. I know sometimes I get great ideas. Get those Aqua Notes. Start writing away in the shower. You may have a high water bill, but you'll definitely get that book written. So anyway, I'm giving all my secrets away. But so who I guess where does someone find information on writing a book? And did you mention that it's done for you, or is it a course? Or do you offer both?
Yeah, so we have a couple of ways we help business owners through this process. One of them is completely done for you.
Okay.
We'll interview you, pull all the content out of your head. We'll help you structure it and organize it. And then our team of writers will take over and they'll write it. We'll edit it, get you a great bookstore quality cover, and take you all the way through the publishing and the promotion process. Because the point is not to write the book. The point is to have a book that you can promote to attract clients. So we want to get you through the writing and design and the publishing process as quickly as we can. So that process takes about 90 days. And then we've got another program, which I'm really excited about because we've had just tremendous success in guiding business owners through our process. And this is for business owners who want to write the book themselves, or maybe they don't have the budget for the done for you to have, because writers are not cheap.
Right.
To have a really good writer write it. So you're going to write it yourself. We've made that really, really simple. And then our team will do the cover design and some of the other things that would be more difficult for you to hire, and then help with the promotion and all that. So we've got that program as well. That's called the Magnetic Author Accelerator. And the other program is called Magnetic Author Elite. And what we do is when I'm meeting with an entrepreneur who's looking to write a book, we're going to talk through the options and where do they want to be, from both an investment perspective and, in terms of their time and all of that. We'll help find the right solution for them. And so that's kind of how we walk folks through it. And I actually just finished my latest book, which lays out our process, called the Magnetic Author Method. And, and it'll lay out why you should write a book. It'll take you through how to structure the book and all the way through the ways that we teach our clients to promote it.
And you'll work, so someone that does contact you has the initial conversation. They could be in any industry. I know you focus on service, other industries.
Well, we tend to focus on service businesses simply because service businesses have a process that they're using to help someone, right? That's the service. Mm-hmm. And they typically charge a fair amount of money for what they do. And what they do is usually complex. And so that's what we're usually looking to work with business owners who do something that's complicated, that take people through a process, and that they need to spend a lot of time educating their prospects about what it is that they do. So that we don't exclusively work with service businesses, but they tend to fall into that category. I was giving a speech on this one time, and there was a guy in the office, in the audience. It was just a group of about a dozen business owners, and he owned Krispy Kreme franchises, the donut franchise. Yeah. He didn't need to write a book. I mean, he might want to write a book, and that'd be great, but I'd be like, I think you just need to go on the corner with a box of donuts and give away samples. That's going to be way more effective. It's not that complicated. But if you're listening to this and you do something that's complex, that people need to be educated about, then you are a great candidate for a book. So we work with a lot of attorneys, accountants, medical professionals, consultants, coaches, people in franchising, in big business exit strategy, financial advisors. So folks who are doing complicated things that are high value for people.
And in that conversation too, and this is a tremendous value in working together and having our conversations. It's really laying out not just a book, but then it turns into the marketing plan. How does this book fall into place? Does it make sense to maybe not start off with the book, and maybe in your specific case, a podcast is maybe the better fit leading up to the book? I'm just making this up. So having that conversation, because you want to have that plan. Where do you want to be? What's your ultimate goal? Because that will ultimately affect that business development, the strategy that you're going to go going forward. Is that pretty accurate when talking to somebody?
Yeah. Absolutely. So we'll look at where they are kind of in their business growth
Right.
journey and look at what else they have in place. And so for some businesses, although I don't find this very often, most businesses are dying to get more leads and opportunities. And so that's why we tend to start with the book now. But for those who are getting plenty of leads and opportunities but aren't following up with them in an effective way, a podcast is one of the very best tools that they can use to do that. So we'll look at where they are and help guide them to the right tool to get the goal, to achieve the goal that they want to achieve.
Awesome. Yeah. So definitely, and we'll give your website here in a second, but anything, maybe it starts with the book, overall strategy. Maybe it's launching a podcast, the Unstoppable CEO.net. I'm assuming is the best place for people to start. That'll give that overview. Any other sites, or if someone wants to go directly to find out more about your book or the writing a book, I should say.
Yeah. So they can go to magneticauthor.co, so magneticauthor.co. And we've got a great little 15-minute overview video there that you can watch that describes the process and how we approach writing books. And for folks who are listening who want to get a copy of my new book, they can go to magneticauthorbook.com. And again, that's magneticauthorbook.com. And you can get a copy of the book there, and go through the book, and you'll see our process. We live out everything that we tell our clients to do. So you'll see our process and what's involved, and you'll be able to judge for yourself whether or not it's a fit for you. Right.
And if you need the extra guidance and expertise, contact Steve. And I'm sure there's a way for them to schedule a call, contact you directly.
Absolutely.
On the sites. Okay.
Yep. Absolutely.
Awesome. I always like to end these great conversations. Tell the audience an interesting fact. I always find this pretty interesting.
An interesting fact that most people don't know. I was born in Alaska.
I didn't know that.
That's a relatively unique thing. I didn't live there for very long because my parents are from Florida. My dad was in the Air Force up there, but yeah, I was born in Alaska and then moved to the opposite climate and grew up in Florida.
Awesome. I did not know that. In the 2 years I've known you, I had no idea. So yeah. Awesome. You find some very interesting things. The more and more I start asking that question. People link to celebrities and all this other cool kind of stuff. So unfortunately, I don't have that, but I'm still digging. I got to do my ancestry.com and hopefully maybe there's some relation there. So Steve, it's been awesome. I want to thank you again for helping me launch my show and the book. It's definitely been a game changer, and it's just given me not putting leads aside and referrals and money, just peace of mind. I was just really racking my brain figuring out, is it social media? Is it paid ads? Is it the website? I had no idea what I was doing. You go online and everyone has the best idea in helping you grow your business. And it became very overwhelming. So this is a very simple strategy. And I think the trick is, although very simple, you need to be consistent with it. And just because you have a book, you got to follow up. And maybe that's an email, maybe that's a phone call, but there needs to be a follow-up. It's not as simple as just writing a book and sitting back. Same thing with your podcast and your signature presentation. There needs to be follow-up. If someone requests it, you should be following up. Brief email, phone call if you gather contact information. So that is definitely the key, and that's something I need to do a better job on as well. So thank you again. I truly mean that for anyone that's thinking about a book, a podcast, or thinking about an overhaul of their marketing strategy. I encourage you to reach out to Steve at the UnstableCEO.net, or we'll put all the other websites here in the show notes. So Steve, thanks again for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
It's been fun, Giuseppe. Great to see you.
Great seeing you as well. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in. Whenever you're ready, here are 3 ways Giuseppe can help. 1. If you've ever considered owning a business of any kind, you owe it to yourself to get a copy of Giuseppe's book, Franchise Freedom. Download your free copy at ggthefranchiseguide.com/book. 2. Want to understand how successful executives make the transition from corporate to owning their own franchise? Join Giuseppe's next online presentation, Franchise Freedom: How to Escape the Corporate World and Have Financial and Time Freedom by Owning a Franchise, by going to ggthefranchiseguide.com/video. 3. Want to work with Giuseppe one-on-one to identify the right franchise opportunity for you, to navigate the process, and get plugged into experienced franchising advisors? Send him an email to gg@ggthefranchiseguide.com with one-on-one in the subject, and he'll send you all the details.